welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written by Adrian Peterson in Indianapolis, and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave. Today on Wavescan, the world's oldest radio tower, the story of Eiffel Tower Radio, and our Australian DX report. It was back in the year 1882 that two draft engineers working in a construction company with Gustave Eiffel began the development of a concept for the erection of a steel tower in the city of Paris, France. 2 years later, the first tentative draft was completed, and the engineers shared the concept drawings with the owner of their company, Gustave Eiffel. Soon afterwards, a total of 50 engineers and draftsmen prepared a total of 5,300 drawings and plans for the entire project, and these were submitted to the organizers of the 1889 Paris World's Fair as their entry for a fair icon. On June 12, 1886, the plans for the Eiffel Tower were granted equal first prize in the competition, and 6 months later, the city authorities gave approval for construction to begin. It should be stated that the other equal first prize winner for the 1889 World's Fair in Paris was a huge single-story building, the Galerie des Machines, which itself was considerably larger than the Eiffel Tower, extending more than a quarter mile along the ground. Preliminary work for the new Eiffel Tower began on January 28, 1887, with the excavation down to bedrock for the tower base. In mid-year, 100 metal workers and 132 assemblers began the on-site assembly of the tower on the Champ de Mars Park in central Paris. They drilled 8 million rivet holes and assembled more than 18,000 pieces for the construction of the magnificent tower that eventually stood almost 1,000 feet tall. The total weight is close to 10,000 tons. It is stated that the new Eiffel Tower was completed at the end of March, just 6 weeks ahead of the official opening of the Paris World's Fair on May 6, 1889. At the time, the new Eiffel Tower became the world's tallest man-made structure, twice taller than the pyramids and St. Peter's Dome in the Vatican, and not superseded for another 3 decades until the Chrysler Building was constructed in New York in 1930. Fortunately, no workmen were killed in the construction of the tower. However, in 1901, a French airship crashed into the tower, and a frightened pregnant woman gave birth to a child. Some years later, a woman tried to commit suicide by jumping from the tower. However, she landed on top of a car and subsequently ended up marrying the owner of the car.
À Paris, quand un amour fleurit, ça fait pendant des semaines 2 cœurs qui sourient, tout ça parce qu'ils s'aiment à Paris. Au printemps.
The first usage of wireless on the new Eiffel Tower was in November 1897, when Eugène Ducretet placed his homemade wireless transmission equipment on the 3rd floor of the new structure. He followed up these original experiments just 1 year later, on November 5, 1898, when he made long-wave spark communication with the Pantheon in Paris, a distance of nearly 3 miles. 7 years later again, a regular wireless link was established with the French military post near the border with Germany, and soon afterwards, regular communication was established across the Mediterranean with the French government in Casablanca, Morocco. The first broadcast of radio programming from the Eiffel Tower was accomplished on January 12, 1908, when the American radio inventor Lee DeForest presented a joint musical program with his wife, Nora. Soon afterwards, a permanent wireless center was constructed underground near the south leg of the tower, a facility that is still in use to this day. 2 years later, on May 23, 1910, the official wireless station on the Eiffel Tower, with its rather appropriate call sign FL, began the regular broadcast of accurate time signals. Due to widespread criticism at the time, it was agreed that the Eiffel Tower would be demolished a few years after its official opening. However, when World War I was in the offing, the importance of the tower for wireless communication was well established, and so the tower was saved. And instead, modernization projects have been implemented on the tower on several occasions. At the commencement of World War I in 1914, messages transmitted from the tower called taxis to transport personnel to the war front in the Battle of the Marne. And in 1916, experimentation was completed for computing the exact distance between Europe and the United States. These transmission experiments were carried out with communication between station FL on the Eiffel Tower and the American Navy station NAA at Arlington in Virginia. Regular radio broadcasting from the tower began during the year 1921 with the airing of music records, and at the end of December 1921, regular live programming was produced. The long-wave transmitter was rated at 800 watts, and the antenna was a simple wire hanging from the top of the tower. Experimental television broadcasts took place in 1925. During the 1930s, regular broadcasting from the tower was noted in Europe and North America on long-wave, medium-wave, and short-wave. 2 short-wave channels were in use, 6120 kHz and 9525 kHz, and QSL cards were issued for reception reports noting these broadcasts. However, the shortwave antenna system on the tower was not efficient due to the design of the tower and the restricted space. During the tragic events of World War II, the German occupation army took over the Eiffel Tower in June 1940, and 4 years later, in August 1944, the American army took over the tower. Interestingly, during the year 1960, 2 fraudulent attempts were made to sell the tower for scrap, resulting in the loss of thousands of dollars on the part of the gifted buyers. In 1957, new radio and TV antennas were installed at the top of the tower, and these days the tower is still in use for the broadcast of FM and TV programming.
Il revient à ma mémoire des souvenirs familiers. Je revois ma blouse noire lorsque j'étais écolier.
It is stated that the famed Eiffel Tower in Paris is the world's most visited tourist attraction, with a total of well over 200 million visitors thus far. We could ask the question, is the Eiffel Tower the world's first wireless radio broadcasting station? It is true the current radio stations that use the Eiffel Tower for their transmission system can trace their earliest origins back to the year 1897, when the first wireless transmission took place during the month of November. Over the years, though, the Eiffel Tower has been used by several different personnel and organizations for wireless experimentation, wireless transmission, and radio and TV broadcastings. However, using the same criteria, we discovered that there was a slightly earlier wireless station, and this one was located in the American state of Arkansas. Back during the year 1897, Professor William Gladson constructed an experimental wireless station at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, Arkansas. This experimental unit was replaced by a larger facility 3 years later, which was subsequently designated as a special land station under the call sign 5YM. Then in 1923, a medium wave station was inaugurated at the same university under the call sign KFMQ, which was subsequently redesignated as KUOA, which was later sold to the John Brown University at Siloam Springs, half a dozen miles further north. Then back a half dozen years ago, the station was sold again, and the studios were moved to nearby Springdale, though the transmitter and tower are still located at the John Brown University. Admittedly, the historic lines of descent for both wireless radio stations, KUOA in Arkansas and the Eiffel Tower in Paris, are at times quite tenuous. However, if you accept these matters in the same light, then medium wave KUOA, with its earliest origins during the year 1897, might be seen as the earliest wireless radio broadcasting station in the world, and the Eiffel Tower, with its earliest origins later in the same year, might be seen as the oldest wireless radio broadcasting tower in the world. La Marseillaise, the national anthem of France, on Wavescan from Adventist World Radio.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Greetings to shortwave enthusiasts around the world. This is Bob Padula in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, with another edition of the Australian DX Report. These magazines provide news of shortwave broadcasting stations, monitoring summaries, propagation news, and other information concerning world international broadcasting. As I start to remind you that full detail QSLs are available for correct reports received for these episodes. The address will be given at the end of the program. And to note that all times, days and dates given in our episodes are in UTC, and we use the 24-hour time system. The episodes are compiled from resources made available by the Electronic DXpress Radio Monitoring Association, which is based here in Melbourne.
Beginning our program for this time, our information from the Ionospheric Prediction Service in Sydney, New South Wales, here in Australia, concerning solar activity. The IPS advises that solar activity continues to be classified as very low. The latest available information is that the 10.7 centimetre solar radio flux has dropped to 102, that's 102, and the equivalent daily smooth sunspot number has fallen to 50. And those figures are not expected to increase significantly in the immediate future. So it just means that high frequency bands are not going to be very reliable over darkness or semi-darkness paths over long distances, that's multi-hop propagation, on frequencies above about 15 megahertz. But frequencies below 15 megahertz on darkness or semi-darkness paths will be satisfactory. Now, some shortwave station news. First of all, South Korea. The new schedule, the B12 schedule for Korean Broadcasting System Radio Korea, shows English language programs as follows. The English language program number 1, or network 1, is 0200 to 0300 to South America using 9580, and 0800 to 0900 to Southeast Asia on 9570, 1200 to 1300 to North America on 15575, and 1300 to 1400 to Southeast Asia on 9570, and 1600 to 1700 to Southeast Asia on 9640, and to Europe 1600 to 1700 using 9515, and again 1800 to 1900 on 7275. Now, English program or network 2 from Korean Broadcasting System is 2200 to 2230 to Europe on 3955 from the Skelton relay station in the UK. And the third English language program is 0200 to 0300 to Southeast Asia on 9640, and 1230 to 1330 to China on 6095. There's also another English program from the Korean Broadcasting System, 1400 to 1500 to Southeast Asia on 9640. And the 75 metre band is also used, as well as for the English. It has a German program on 3955 from Skelton between 2000 and 2100 to Europe. Now, Japanese programs from Korean Broadcasting System, 0100 to 0200 on 9580, 0200 to 0300 on 11810, 0800 to 0900 on 6155 and 7275, and 0900 to 1100 on 9805. And finally, Vietnamese programs from Korean Broadcasting System. 0100 to 0200 on 9690, 1030 to 1130 on 9770, and 1500 to 1600 on 9640. So that was some information concerning the transmission schedule for Korean Broadcasting System at Seoul for the new transmission season. That's the B12 transmission season. Now, some monitoring notes made here in Melbourne recently. The Elinda Forest is about 30 kilometres east of central Melbourne, and it's in the Dandenong Ranges National Park, and it has some interesting sites where power line noise is very low. There's some information concerning my reception at this site during last week. Almost complete absence of power line interference. There was almost zero noise floor, and reception was only limited by the sensitivity of the receiver, which was the Little Eaton E5 with about 3 metres of random antenna. Now, the 31 metre band was very full at 0315, and 41 metre band signals appeared at 0345, and many long pass signals from the Middle East were audible. And those times are early afternoon here in Melbourne. And this is a summary of selected entries which I hope may be of use. Between 0315 and 0330, 7250, Russia, the voice of Russia from Krasnodar in English, to signing off at 0400. And the same program on 7290 from Moldova, from Kishinev, signing off at 0400. In the 31 metre band, between 0315 and 0330, 9370, Diwa radio from that's the Voice of America transmission, from the Aranawilla relay station in Sri Lanka in Pashto. 9395, the Voice of Russia from Yerevan in Armenia in Spanish. 9445, the Voice of America from Biblis in Germany in Persian. And 9475, the Voice of Russia from Dushanbe in Tajikistan in Spanish. And 9750, the Voice of Russia from Yerevan in Spanish, that's in Armenia. And 3 frequencies for the Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran. 9510 in Russian to sign off at 0330, 9710 in English to sign off at 0330, and 9740 in Arabic. And on 9695, the BBC from its Cyprus relay station noted carrying Persian language programs. Now from 0330 to 0345, 31 metre band monitoring reveals these signals. 9460, BBC from the Seychelles in English, 9500 and 9895, the Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Arabic, and 9765, Radio Romania International in English, and 9835, daytime reception from Radio Television Malaysia at the Kajang transmitting site, with the program originating from the Sarawak studio. And 9965, Radio Cairo in Egypt in Arabic, and up the top end of the 31 metre band, 9975, Christian Vision Communications, the religious station from the Tashkent relay station in Uzbekistan in Hindi. And between 0400 and 0415 on 7315, Radio Tamazuru via Santa Maria de Galleria, that's in the Vatican, special relay service in Sudanese, and that's at 0400. And on 9560, the Xinjiang People's Broadcasting Station at Urumqi in China, with the programs in the Uyghur. So that was some information concerning my monitoring from the Elinda Forest recently, not far from or east of central Melbourne in the Dandenong Ranges National Park, and it just shows what can be done with a simple receiver, small antenna, and very little power line interference. Now, we'll return to some more shortwave station news schedules. This time, the International Radio Serbia for the B12 transmission season. The new schedule has been released and it shows English at the following times: 0130 to 0200 on 6190 to Europe and North America, and 1400 to 1430 on 9635 to Europe, 1930 to 2000 on 6100 to Europe, and 2200 to 2230 on 6100. Now, programs in Hungarian from Serbian radio: 1800 to 1815 on 9635, intended for Europe, of course, and Spanish programs 1500 to 1530 using 9635 to Europe, and also from 2000 to 2030 on 6100. And that's the official schedule of International Radio Serbia, but overseas monitors report that the station appears to be erratic with its scheduling, and it is not heard every day, and it's not heard on some of those frequencies. So that's the official schedule, so it may be useful to monitor those frequencies and see what's happening with International Radio Serbia.
And that's all we have time for in our episode of the Australian DX Report, which came to you from Melbourne in Victoria, Australia. I'd just like to remind you that we offer full detail QSL cards showing Australian scenes and wildlife for correct reports received for these broadcasts. We also offer an email QSL service for reports sent via the internet or email. Full details about the QSL service are available at the Electronic DXpress homepage, which is simply edxp.org. So until our next program, this is Bob Padula in Melbourne in Victoria, Australia, wishing you all good listening. Thanks for being with us, and good DX. See you soon.
Now some DX news from Europe, and this comes to us from the DX Window publication of the Danish Shortwave Club International via Anker Petersen. Well, the members of the European DX Council, the clubs and individual members, had a vote recently on two matters. One of them is the new EDXC staff. Now, the following people will be in their new position from January 1st, 2013 until December 31st of 2015. Tibor Seligi of Sweden, the current EDXC Secretary General, is retiring, and the new Secretary General will be Kari Kivakais of Finland. The Assistant Secretary General, the current one, is Ingvar Kohlström of Sweden. He will be retiring, and the new Assistant Secretary General is Jan Michael Nurmela of Finland. Then there are two new auditors, well-known DXers Dave Kenny and Alan Pennington, both from the United Kingdom, will be replacing Anker Petersen and Kai Bredal Jorgensen, both from Denmark. So congratulations to the new European DX Council staff. And the members also voted on the location for the European DX Council Conference for 2013. It's going to be in Portugal. The dates are September 6th to the 9th, 2013, in the city of Figueira da Foz. That's west of Coimbra. And more details will be forthcoming in the near future. Thanks to Tibor Seligi for that information. And we end today's edition of Wavescan with some music from Corsica, a French island off the southern coast of France. This is Petru Guelfucci and his song Corsica. Thank you very much for listening to Wavescan, the weekly DX program from Adventist World Radio. You can hear Wavescan on WWCR from Nashville, Tennessee, every Saturday at 1730 UTC on 12,160 kilohertz. There is a new time that has just come into effect for the Wavescan transmission on WINB in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. The program has moved from 1800 UTC to 2000 UTC On Wednesdays, but remaining on the same frequency as before, 13,570 kilohertz. This program was researched and written by Dr. Adrian Peterson in Indianapolis. Next week on Wavescan, Afghanistan returns to the air on shortwave, off-site relays, and we'll have DX news from Bangladesh and Japan. If you'd like a Wavescan QSL card, either the AWR or WRMI version, you can send your reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. Our email address is wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White in Miami. Till next week, good listening, everyone.